And there we go. So welcome, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. September already. It feels that the summer, certainly within the UK, flew by and kids back to school and everything. So I feel this session is of a timely need, which is all around motivation masterpiece. It's all around effective motivation. I'll go into what we're going to cover within these short 60 minutes in a short while, but I just want to give us some tips to make sure that we're set up for success whilst we're going through our time together. So if we have a look, these are the 4 key rules that we always use, tips that we always use within any of our sessions, whether that is on a webinar like now, a virtual classroom, or also our face-to-face. And what I want us to do, quite an easy subject to talk about really today, but respect each other. And what I want, and that goes alongside the safe space as well. Every single person on this list, quite an intimate list, which I actually prefer as a trainer, as a facilitator, because I feel you can interact a lot more with the person. But every single person who is here on this call has a valid seat. I want to hear your opinion. I'm asking for your opinion. So you have a complete safe space to answer the questions. Think about what it is that you want to get from today, get involved, get stuck in. And so make sure that we create that space for you all to take something from it. And we can do that by respecting each other's opinions, but also having a safe space. We've got some different cultures, different countries, different markets represented today. So I'm really excited to go on that journey with you all. Do get stuck in. You get out what you put in. I feel that with a webinar, out of all the deliveries, so virtual classroom, face-to-face, webinar are the 3 main ones we do. I feel that the webinar is the one where you can hide the most. You can have it on in the background. You can be doing emails, sending Slack messages, working on that last minute piece of work that you need to do and have it on the background, paying a bit part attention. But if you do that, you're only going to get a little bit from it. So if you find yourself doing that, ask yourself your question. Do you want to keep doing that, or do you want to get something from the 60 minutes that you've put aside towards your own personal development that can help yourself out, but also the team around you? Protect the time. I guarantee you'll get a lot more from it, and in doing so you'll have a bit more fun on it as well. I think it's really good that you've protected the time towards your development, so keep it protected. Shut down the noise, the distractions. If you know that you're a sucker for your phone like I am, put it to one side and then pay attention to what's going on in the session. You'll get a lot more from it. And in terms of what we got coming up in the session, I'll get to that in a moment, but just to clarify all the housekeeping that we've been going through whilst you've been joining. So chat function is how we're going to interact. Okay, so find the chat function. That's how we're going to interact. We're also going to have polls. Your lines are muted and your cameras are off. If you want to come in on the end and ask questions, you're more than welcome to do so. So that's our setup for today. In terms of the slides, I will be sending a post-course email to you all with the slides, with any of the information I think might be relevant from our conversation that we're having, as well as a recording will be available on the website as mentioned. Okay. In terms of the agenda, let's have a look. Very simple for the 60 minutes. I've been trying to make sure that we don't overrun. So we're going to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but more than that, we're going to look at how it's slightly rewired for the modern workplace and the modern human as well. I think Maslow's is a really tried and tested model, but there is some flaws with it that I want to put under the spotlight, potentially challenge, see what you think. But also, how do we apply it into us as individuals? Then we're going to go into looking at extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. So the difference between the two, and also how do we tap into them to get the most out of ourselves, but also individuals around us? And then finally, I'm going to give you something practical to take away to help personalize motivation. There are 2 lenses that I want you to look at this session at today. So the first lens is as an individual. What's motivating you? Some of these tools, these tips, these tricks can help you think about how you can become more motivated and become more accountable for your motivation, rather than saying, hey, I need my work to be more motivating and waiting for it to come to you. How do you go and seize that? How do you make work more of a place that you want to go in and motivates you to achieve all the things that you're set to do? That's the first lens, so for ourselves. The second lens is for that of our team. So if you are in a team leader position, which I see a few of you are, or in HR, working with people, that's the other lens that I want you to look through. I will try to interchange between the two, being mindful of it, but there are definitely two lenses that you can look through today, motivating for ourselves, but also motivating the team around us. With that, this is where I want to hear from this. And this is where we've got a real good advantage here because we've got a smaller group. I can really tailor the content. I've got a roadmap, I've got some slides, but also I've got heaps of content on motivation. We do a full day on motivation alone. So it'd be really interesting to hear at this point via the chat function, what is it that you, each one of you on this session, not just the person you're waiting to type in the chat, but you, what is it that you want to get from today? How can I help? How can I help make a difference to you as an individual? So do type into the chat what it is that you want to get from today. Give you a moment of silence to consider that, put it in, and then if you see anything that people put in that resonates with you, you do have the function of emoji, so you can hover over the answer, you'll get an emoji that comes up and you can give a reaction. So thumbs up, whatever it be. So then that gives us a way of being interactive with each other on the session. So type into the chat what it is that you want to get from today, what's your challenges when it comes to motivation for yourself or your team. And then that's hopefully going to help me tailor the session around you as individuals. Yeah, so Daniel going in with the with the heavy artillery already. So yeah, driving change within an organization. Absolutely. And yeah, we're going to tap into that. I think if you're looking at change, we're looking at the people around us. So how do we motivate them to get involved with change? In fact, Daniel, you've just given me a good idea there for maybe the next session or one of the ones in 2025 could be around change as well, but motivation certainly helps. How do we get the team to come on board with this journey that we're going through on change, and knowing what motivates these individuals can certainly help. So thank you for sharing that. League team motivation, absolutely. We're going to look at some practical things we can take away to tap into what gets those people going, so then we can be really conscious in our decisions when we are trying to motivate the individuals around us. Yeah, Katie can completely look at that. People agreeing with that. Well done for using the emojis, by the way, team. So yeah, we can certainly look at that, sharpening the tools. That's what I always say within these sessions. You've probably got tools already. Motivation. we use motivation from a very early age, so we understand how to do it. But equally, it's always good to sharpen the tool set to make us more effective with that, and also share those ideas as well. Yeah, and Michael, you that's why I thought this time of year would be quite good for this, because you come to the end of the summer, people coming in going, okay, back to the grind. And so having that for ourselves is good, but also to fire up the motivation within the team as well. So yeah, that's a top tip again, sharpening the tool set and getting ideas to get colleagues more on board with intrinsic motivations. Yes, of course, we're gonna look at that. I don't want to give away too much, but quite often we rely on extrinsic. But actually, how do we tap into that power of it intrinsic? We're going to watch a really interesting video from Dan Pink that suggests there's more than just a feeling to it. There's actually some scientific hard evidence that suggests that intrinsic motivation is the way forward. I'm going to just keep reading a couple of these points. Yeah, so Kim, and I always say when you come in on these sessions, be a selfish learner. What can you take away for yourself first off? So yeah, tapping into your own motivation and being more cognizant of what it is that motivates you, and trying to find that within the work that you do. But equally, how do you motivate apprenticeships or people who are maybe in a slightly different position to you, and how do you get them to complete that and move forward with positivity as well? Yeah, Michael, definitely going to look at how we can identify people's motivation, and yeah, need more focus and attention. Yeah, we'll talk to that a little bit. I think that's the question you need to ask for yourself. That's more around that situational leadership that I know that I've covered with you in the past as well. Antonia, good to see you as well. Motivating team and stakeholders to drive positive improvement. Yes, yeah. Improve morale. Jane, that's such a good point. And yeah, getting a lot of interactions. Well done, team, for all these interactions, for the emoji. Keep that up. I love that. But yeah, improving morale. That's exactly it, And I think It's quite you see it in places of work where people say, um, I'm not motivated. And you ask the question, well, what have you done about it? Well, place of work doesn't care about me. And it keeps going back onto the place of work. But actually, I think if we all take a bit more accountability for being motivated, then the byproduct of that is it's going to improve our morale. So yeah, taking ownership of it really matters. Tim, hopefully a better understanding of what motivates individuals within a team and how to properly find that out. Yeah, I'm going to give you a simple tool to take away that hopefully you can apply from today. One conversation with one of your team members, and you'll see. Let's see if it's beneficial. As I've always said with any of the sessions I've delivered, I always say the simple techniques are often the best ones because they're the easiest to apply in a busy life and a busy work life at that. So I'll give you something practical to take away at the very end there, Tim, and everyone else. So thank you for sharing those expectations. I feel I'm going to tick off most of them. And if there's anything at the end you think, I didn't think quite got that, Rich, we've got time for a little bit of Q&A. So do keep a record of that as well. So with that, my expectations, always the same three for those that have been with me before. First off, this is a safe space to ask questions, to feel a bit stupid. I know that's a strong word, but if we're learning, we should feel a bit stupid, a bit uncomfortable. So ask the questions that you really want to ask. You've got complete safety to do that. I'm not going to ridicule you, and hopefully the peers on here aren't. Next one, so safe space, be present. I keep mentioning that, but on a webinar, it's easy to go to and fro and back and forth from emails, phones. So try and be present. I guarantee you'll get a lot more from it and be able to tick off those expectations, those challenges in the chat that you've just shared. So safe space, be present. And then the final thing is start thinking, have pen and paper, have something open for you to record the key points that you're taking from and think about how you're going to embed it. The final stage is what are you going to do with this information? It's great that you've put 60 minutes aside, but in fact, this should only be a continuation of the journey around motivation. So think about what you're going to take away. And if we've got time, I might just ask that of you at the end as a team. What is it that really resonated with you that you're going to go and apply to hold yourself to a little bit of account, but also to hopefully give you the motivation to put something into practice? Okay, so on that, let's start with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I'm not going to go there yet. Hopefully some of you are aware of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I feel we need to start at the start. So before we get to it, what do I mean by motivation? Not what motivates, because I'm sure we're aware of what motivates us, but what is the definition of motivation? Now, I know that there is an AI companion on Zoom now. You could just ask that to answer the question, but let's see what we think it is. So type into the chat, use the chat. What is motivation? Not what motivates, because we'll get to that shortly. But what is motivation? Type into the chat how you would define it. Thanks, Anna, for going first. The drive to succeed, improve. Yeah, drive to do something that pushes us forward. The reason for doing something. Yeah, we're getting some good answers here. What drives you? Yeah, I like that, Kim. What makes you get up in the morning, being engaged and driven to accomplish something to push you forward. Okay, feels like we're on the same page here, and you're not too far away from the definition from Dan Pink. We're going to go back to Dan Pink in a short while. He's an American author, and he came up with what's called the puzzle of motivation. And we're going to watch his TED talk. Not in its entirety. I will share that with you. But within his findings, he's found it's internal and external factors that stimulate the desire and energy in people to continually be interested and committed to a job, the role, the subject, or to make an effort to attain a goal. So exactly as you've all mentioned. So with that in mind, big question to ask in the morning of you. I'm going to start a poll, and this is very personal to you. So if I go to polls, you're going to see it pop up on your screen. And the question is this: what motivates you the most? Now, I'm going to put a list up. You can choose up to 3. Once you've done that, submit it, and we'll give you a few moments to consider that. But what motivates you the most? So on that list, you'll see that now are things such as feedback, involvement, pay, interesting work, fun, clear direction, development. So start interacting with that and make sure you click submit. I want to see from everyone. This is completely anonymous, the answers. And I want you to be honest, okay? I want you to be honest with yourself. What is it that gets you out out of bed in the morning? What makes you keep going back to work? Okay, yes, it's some really good interaction. Keep going. I'm not going to stop it just yet because it does take a while. If you've never considered this for yourself before, it's quite a big question, but a great question to ask ourselves. Okay, I'll give a couple more seconds. Good to see everyone's interacting with it. There we go. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm going to end the poll and share. And what you're going to see here in that poll is that whilst interesting, feeling valued, 93% of you suggested that was one of your motivators, which is really interesting and just goes to show how that shift of the workplace is happening. A point for another time, but we need to be wary of that as if we're in a leadership position. Yes. And one thing I should have said, yeah, that's a really good point, Michael. This isn't an exclusive list. This is just some 10 top motivating factors. If there's other ones for you, brilliant, capture them, write them down, because you found something there that is of a motivating factor for yourself, as Michael's just pointed out there, developing others. So what we can see from this, even from this small pool of people, what we can see is that whilst there's some similarities across the boards, actually all but 2 of those 10 motivators were ticked in some way. And what that highlights to us, which it does in every single session, is that everyone is different, which is what makes motivation a challenge. Because if everyone was the same, it'd be one size fits all. Well, let's try it. This works with everyone, so let's just give it this. And that's why it's so complicated. And that's why it's a little bit of a puzzle, as Dan Pink alluded to in the puzzle of motivation, because everyone is different. Now, there's lots of research on the subject. If you want to take a deeper dive, I'm sure you could just type in Maslow theories and you get some out. So another one that we talk about in our face-to-face sessions is McGregor's theory X and theory Y, which is the idea that people either have an inherent dislike of work and have to be coerced and manipulated to do the things, but then also theory Y is the idea that people want to come in, contribute, be involved, as some of you have said, have interest in work, feel like they have some autonomy, some ownership, are empowered. So there's 2 different types, and the idea is the manager can create the conditions to how they interact with the different types, and maybe create theory X or theory Y, but equally they also need to adapt to individuals. So you might have someone who is, to begin with, I'll use myself as an example. When I was young, 18, 19, all I cared about, theory X, I wanted to get work done so I could go out on the weekend with my friends. Going into your 20s, your 30s, you start to realize actually there's a little bit more to life than just getting paid. Work is where we spend the most of our time. So then I started to transition towards a theory Y. And so a good manager would know how to tap into that and get it out. Now, you could say that theory X is people that you don't want on your team because they've got an inherent dislike to work, but they will work because they want to get that paycheck. They want to have that safety, which goes quite nicely into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But it's just about adapting our approach to get the most from them. So thank you for sharing those motivations. Do make a note of it for yourself, but also think about that question I just asked you. Simple question, could be used with your team. A really powerful question as well. So yeah, there's one top tip, and we'll go back to that later on. So I said we were going to look at Maslow's, and let's have a look at it now. Slightly adapted for People Unboxed, because there is for those that know the hierarchy of needs, you will know that high flying is self-actualization. There's a few changes in terminology. The reason why we changed it is to make it a little bit more relevant to us as individuals. So let's go through this. I think this is a really good tried and tested model to get us our head around what motivation is and the different types of motivation. But there are some challenges with it, which I'll talk to in a short while. So we can see at the bottom 2. In fact, before I do, you should have on your toolbar, you should have an emoji. So not in the chat, on the toolbar. Give me a thumbs up if you if you have come across Maslow's hierarchy of needs before. There we go. So yeah, so some of you finding those emojis very early on, much quicker than I. Yeah, I'd say there's about half of us have come across it, maybe just shy. Thanks very much. So some of us haven't, some of us have. No worries if you haven't. It's a very easy model to explain. So what we can see is, so this is from the 1960s, so a very well established model. And what Maslow found is actually there were different needs for people. And almost like the way I always describe it, almost like a video game. You'd have to complete one level to then move up, hence hierarchy. So then you'd move up to the next level. So the basic level, if you are a gamer, imagine it being the easy level to get yourself used to it. Now, is it easy to bring to life? That's a question depending on the environment you're in, background, etc. But the very bottom is basic needs. And those basic needs are what keep us alive. So air, water, food, rest, exercise. Why is that relevant for a workplace? Well, that's pay. That's why quite a lot of you would have ticked that pay was important, because basic and going into safety needs, such as roof over our head, job security, making sure that we feel safe, those two things go hand in hand. So these for me are fundamentals. This is what we need, and this is the basic as to why we work. And we're going to a little bit more science around that in a short while. I'd also say that isn't on there. I'd say one of the basic needs now, especially if you're in a remote-based team, if you're working from home, good Wi-Fi. If you haven't got good Wi-Fi, then all of a sudden it drops very quickly. So there's these two levels. Then there's the next ones, and the first one is love and belonging. It looks very much through the lens of having a partner, having children, if that's something that you feel you would want, you desire. But also, if we look at it through the lens of a workplace, that's feeling part of the team, feeling like you are part of something, that you've got good teammates. And we'll look at how we bring these to life shortly. The next one is around building confidence. Now, this is us as individuals within our career. So how do we build confidence? Well, it's recognition through our manager. If you're in a manager position, take note. And recognition doesn't have to be, hey, well done on the job. Here's £100 Amazon voucher. Recognition is effective feedback. And we've done a session previously on effective feedback that is in our library if you want to watch that on the website. It's about your reputation. It's about your career development. It's also about your dignity and how you come across and interact with people. And if you are you're the go-to person. Now, Maslow calls it self-actualization, the top level, the green-colored one there. We call it high flying because I question whether you can ever self-actualize. I think you should always be looking to develop and improve and sharpen the tool set that you've got. But certainly there is that top level where you're high flying, you're in the zone, you're confident, you've got that level of autonomy, you're free to do your own work in the own way. And as a result, you are achieving, you are a high achiever, you are constantly achieving. Now, as mentioned, Maslow said that you're going to go up the hierarchy. I think that isn't the case. And that's backed up actually by, and if you want to have a look into this, Dr. Pamela Rutledge did a rewired version that came through that Harvard Business School. And within that model, she has a slightly different take on this. These are still important, but people are individual. We just saw that through the poll. It's not a case of, right, achieve this, now I achieve that, now I move up. Actually, we are individuals. So it's not a one size fits all. It's not a computer game where we move up through the levels. Actually, for me, love and belonging might not matter that much, but high flying does. So that's the one I want to tap into. So it's not a case of ticking off all of them as you go. It's about understanding you as an individual if you're looking at it through the lens of yourself, but also understanding that of the team around you and what matters to them. The other thing that Pamela Rutledge suggested within that study was that none of these are possible without social connection or collaboration. So that is absolutely critical to have. And whilst we're not going to get into the weeds of remote working, because I feel we're sussing it out, we're still on the journey of it. We need to be really aware of that when we are motivating the team around us, around that connection, because that is often where we get these from. Because if we don't have that connection, it's very hard to, well, looking at the higher ends, to feel like you belong, you feel isolated, to build that confidence, because you're not having that regular feedback or recognition. And yes, whilst you might feel that you've got a level of autonomy, it's more out of luck than judgment in some of those cases. So social connection really does matter at that. Now, hopefully you understand this, and this is where I'm going to pose the question. You may be already starting to think, well, how do we bring that to life, Rich? And that's exactly the question I want to ask now, because good places of work will bring the first two levels to life. That's why you've got things such as minimal wages, while you've got health and safety regulations in place, while you've got things like pension plans. And well, so people are always encouraged, well, it's actually mandatory now to put into pension pots and whatnot. So we can see that these are being brought to life in good places to work. And that safety need, I know a few of you in construction here, that is often expected, but not always a reality. So they might be dialed up depending on the environment they're in. Now, these should be definitely looked after. And that's why a few of you, well, many of you would have put pay as a motivator. Don't feel selfish for saying that. The reason why we go to work is because we want to get paid. Some of us are in a really privileged position where, yeah, I'm all right. I'll go to work because I want to socially interact with people, etc. But the reason why we go to work primarily is to get paid. Because I guarantee if your work turned around tomorrow and said, hey, I know you love the work you're doing, so good news, we're going to reduce your wage by this amount of money, all of a sudden, the basic and safety needs are amplified. So hopefully we understand how we bring that to life. What I want to focus on is the top three levels, and we're going to go through one at a time. So starting with love and belonging, how do we bring that to life? Let's type in the chat, just love and belonging for now. We'll get to the other two, short and sharp. How do we, or how do you currently, what are you doing? What could you do that could bring that love and belonging in a work context to life, either for yourself or the team around you? So share the answers in the chat. I love this peer-to-peer learning in any session, especially when it's an open session with people from different backgrounds and organizations and experience. So how do we bring that love and belonging to life? Over to you, team. Yeah, Anna, I like that trust and sharing experiences. That's almost tipping into psychological safety, isn't it? Feeling safe enough to share experiences. And to clarify that, those are both good and bad experiences. You know, oh man, I messed up this week. Oh, I made a mistake this week. But equally, celebrating the successes as well. Yeah, make them feel involved and valued. Again, valued being a top motivator in this group. That might be different across your network, but we need to tap into that. So yeah, making them feel like they value, like the contribution matters. And yeah, Daniel backing that up as well. Yeah, and Kim, well done for mentioning valued and important on both a work and personal level. I think that is where we do take the time. It's very hard to quantify the value of this, but taking the time to say, how was your summer? You've been on holiday recently. What did you get up to? Or you've been going through a tough patch recently. How you been? So just being inquisitive. You don't have to be their best friend, but certainly inquisitive on that. And Antonia, yeah, backing that up with regular touch points to ensure that they're being heard, especially if they're remotely based. And yeah, Jane, organise events outside of the workplace and meaningful ones as well, not just tokenistic. Oh, let's all get some pizzas in the office at 5 o'clock. Actually, meaningful ones that tap into what people want to do and trying to keep it different to tick everyone's box as we go through the year. Okay, so that's good. So we've got an idea for that, and hopefully you're getting some ideas, thinking, okay, yeah, I'm not doing that as much, or yeah, I'm doing that. Brilliant. Celebrate the wins. So, next one, build confidence. How do we build confidence both within ourselves, but also the team around us as well? How do we make them feel like they're being recognized, that their reputation is increasing, and also in doing so, that they've got more dignity within the workplace? And yeah, well done, Beth and Daniel. It's absolutely around that feedback, isn't it? And feedback doesn't have to be just in an appraisal or a 6 month, 12-month review. And it should be ongoing. And it shouldn't just be you've done that wrong. This is how you do it better. It should be well done. That was really good. And the reason why it was good, and just keep doing that. That's exactly what you need, especially for new starters, I feel, or someone new to task or role. Yeah, Tim. So going back to the love and belonging piece, the WhatsApp group, great way to stay connected. Yeah, really good. Yeah, it's not rocket science, and that's the thing. That's what I mentioned at the very start. I feel the simplest ideas are often the most effective. So, and also the easiest ones to um, stay stay on top of. Yeah, Katie, regular good news stories shared with the team. I think that's really important. Recognition of work above and beyond the. Yeah, exactly, Daniel, and that's such an important point if you're going through change, that above and beyond, because then that's affirming behavior, making sure that you're getting people to to dial up those, and that's that feedback piece again, isn't it? Jane, I love that piece as well around feedback from people in a higher position than yourself. With my team, I often tell the co-founders of People and Box, they've done a good job. Make sure next time you're with them, tell them what they've done and why it mattered, because that recognition, that really matters, I feel. So yeah, that's a really good way to build confidence. Absolutely. Um, and I love the expression, we either win together or we learn together. If they make a mistake, it's not getting on their back and you shouldn't have done this. It's like, well, why was it made? How could we change it moving forward? Then that's going to help build that confidence. Yeah, exactly, Kim. It does make you feel like you're making a real difference if you're getting feedback from outside your immediate network. Okay, final one then. And you can take this away, remember, this is for you to build on. So the final one is that high flying, which often ticks towards the build confidence. But how do we bring that to life? What are the type of things that we could do for high flying? And remember, Maslow called it self-actualization. If that helps give a clue, because I do feel this is one of the harder ones to bring to life. So no idea is a bad idea, as they say. Try and think about how you'd bring it to life for yourself and those around you. Anna, that word is an amazing word, and one that keeps coming up time and time again in our sessions, regardless of what we're delivering, but building in some time for reflection. And that can be multiple ways of reflecting with your manager, reflecting with your team, reflecting after a project with the project leads, but reflecting for yourself as well. And that's where we start to think, okay, yeah, now I'm starting to see, because we're under so much demand, we just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, and we don't take a moment to put our foot on the ball and go, right, what's actually happened? How do we move forward? So reflection is certainly one which I thoroughly recommend, and one we should be doing for ourselves, but also advocating for our team to do. Daniel mentioned earlier, any good behaviours that you mentioned, give feedback on that, and I think reflection is certainly one that is a really good behaviour. Yeah, more autonomy, Kim. Yeah, listen to their ideas. Yeah, let them suggest ideas and hopefully apply those ones that are ever possible. Yeah, personal development plans, which goes into that building confidence, but also recognizing when they achieve. And if you're in a managerial position, here's a key here: being invested in their development, not just, I'll go on that. You said you wanted to go on that course, go on that course. When they've got, ask them about it beforehand. What are you hoping to get from it? Be interested. Say, what are you going to do as a result of it? And then after the session or the course, the program, okay, what did you learn? How can I help? What can I do to help you apply it? All of a sudden, we as managers are invested in their development. And that for me is a big motivation. If you've got a good manager who's invested in you and these top levels. Yeah, empowering, says Tim, around managing themselves, make them feel free to make their decisions, and and back it up. Give that feedback still. So coupling those together. Yeah, exactly that, Daniel. And that's the whole thing about hopefully the conversation we're having, that people are themselves. And that's brilliant. That's what makes a team diverse. That's what generates new ideas, innovation, creativity. That's what we want to celebrate rather than the one size fits all. So, yeah, really, really important. And there are obviously more ideas out there. When we start providing this great place to work, and also for ourselves as well, let's take some accountability, because who doesn't want to work in a great place to work and feel motivated when you go there? When we start operating at this higher level of the pyramid, that's where we see that psychological contract. Because we see employees and ourselves, if we're in that position, being highly productive, committed, high morale, as we mentioned beforehand. They're unlikely to leave, or at least find it very difficult if they are approached, and they're willing to then deploy that above and beyond mentality, because they believe in the brand, they believe in the culture, they actually feel a part of it, what they're doing. They feel valued, as all of you said so much, that was a top motivator, and they're willing to go that extra mile. So tap into this to get the most out of yourself, but also the people around you. And then this goes quite nicely into that next piece, which is around extrinsic versus intrinsic motivators. Now, if you've got any questions, note it down. We'll have some time at the end. But for now, we've mentioned it quite a lot, extrinsic, intrinsic. What is the difference between the two? Let's make sure we're all on the same page with this. So type into the chat what you feel is the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. This is where we see if you're really safe to stick your neck out. There we go. Anna going early. Yeah, tangible pay versus intangible feelings. A very good way to define it. Let's see if anyone else has got anything to add. This is where usually people just then give just an emoji, a like for 1 point. Extrinsic being others motivating you, intrinsic being self. Yeah, intrinsic yourself, extrinsic others. Yeah, we're on the right sort of page here, team. And just to clarify what it is, so extrinsic is doing something, it's carrot and stick. Earn a reward or avoid the punishment. So pay, bonuses, promotion, keeping your job. Those are extrinsic motivators. Now, the flip side of that is intrinsic, as mentioned, which is doing something because it's personally rewarding to us. And it's that sense of achievement, feeling challenged, feeling valued, feeling like you're contributing and doing something that matters. Now, here's the key part, because the factors within in extrinsic are certainly important. We mentioned that pay. We need those, but only up to a certain point, because once those first two levels of Maslow's is covered, there's so much more that, as we just seen, that motivates an individual. And once people feel that they're being paid fairly, and hey, we can always do with more money. No, not many people are going to turn around and go, do you know what? I'm all right with my pay. I don't want that pay rise that you've just mentioned. But once we feel that we're being paid fairly and it meets those basic and safety needs, it becomes less of a motivator. So these things like pay rises, bonuses, rewards, they can have an immediate powerful effect, but it's not going to last very long. It's going to burn bright, but for a short time. Furthermore, what's interesting, if we're looking at employee retention, and this is more for team leaders and HR representatives here, rival organizations will find it easier to replicate some of those extrinsic motivators, rather than that more personalized intrinsic approach. So yes, extrinsic is important, but only to a certain point. So we want to look at intrinsic. And I want to watch a video that demonstrates this, which is from Dan Pink. Now, we're not going to watch it in its entirety, but there's some really good arguments here that would suggest that whilst extrinsic is important, we aren't paying as much attention as we potentially should be on intrinsic. So we're going to watch this video, not in its entirety. I will share the link with it if you want to watch it in its entirety. But for now, I'm going to turn my camera off, mute my microphone, and I'm going to play Dan Pink's Puzzle of Motivation TED Talk. Enjoy.
I want to make a case. I want to make a hard-headed, evidence-based, dare I say lawyerly case for rethinking how we run our businesses. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, take a look at this. This is called the candle problem. Some of you might have seen this before. It was created in 1945 by a psychologist named Carl Duncker. Carl Duncker created this experiment that's used in a whole variety of experiments in behavioral science. And here's how it works. Suppose I'm the experimenter. I bring you into a room. I give you a candle, some thumbtacks, and some matches. And I say to you, your job is to attach the candle to the wall so the wax doesn't drip onto the table. Now, what would you do? Many people begin trying to thumbtack the candle to the wall. Doesn't work. Some people, and I saw somebody kind of make the motion over here, some people have a great idea where they light the match, melt the side of the candle, try to adhere it to the wall. It's an awesome idea, doesn't work. And eventually, after 5 or 10 minutes, most people figure out the solution, which you can see here. The key is to overcome what's called functional fixedness. You look at that box and you see it only as a receptacle for the tacks, but it can also have this other function as a platform for the candle. Candle problem. Now, I want to tell you about an experiment using the candle problem done by a scientist named Sam Glucksberg, who's now at Princeton University in the US. This shows the power of incentives. Here's what he did. He gathered his participants and he said, I'm going to time you how quickly you can solve this problem. To one group, he said, I'm going to time you to establish norms, averages, for how long it typically takes someone to solve this sort of problem. To the second group, he offered rewards. He said, if you're in the top 25% of the fastest times, you get $5. If you're the fastest of everyone we're testing here today, you get $20. Okay, now this is several years ago, adjusted for inflation. It's a decent sum of money for a few minutes of work. Okay, it's a nice motivator. Question, how much faster did this group solve the problem? Answer, it took them on average 3.5 minutes longer. 3.5 minutes longer. Now this makes no sense, right? I mean, I'm an American, I believe in free markets, that's not how it's supposed to work, right? If you want people to perform better, you reward them, right? Bonuses, commissions, their own reality show, incentivize them. That's how business works, but that's not happening here. You've got an incentive designed to sharpen thinking and accelerate creativity, and it does just the opposite. It dulls thinking and blocks creativity. And what's interesting about this experiment is that it's not an aberration. This has been replicated over and over and over again for nearly 40 years. These contingent motivators. If you do this, then you get that. Work in some circumstances, but for a lot of tasks, they actually either don't work or often they do harm. This is one of the most robust findings in social science and also one of the most ignored. I spent the last couple of years looking at the science of human motivation, particularly the dynamics of extrinsic motivators and intrinsic motivators. And I'm telling you, it's not even close. If you look at the science, there is a mismatch between what science knows and what business does. And what's alarming here is that our business operating system, think of the set of assumptions and protocols beneath our businesses, how we motivate people, how we apply our human resources. It's built entirely around these extrinsic motivators, around carrots and sticks. That's actually fine for many kinds of 20th century tasks. But for 21st century tasks, that mechanistic reward and punishment approach doesn't work, often doesn't work, and often does harm. Let me show you what I mean. So Glucksberg did another experiment similar to this, where he presented the problem in a slightly different way, like this up here. Okay? Attach the candle to the wall so the wax doesn't drip onto the table. Same deal. You were timing for norms. You were incentivizing. What happened this time? This time, the incentivized group kicked the other group's butt. Why? Because when the tacks are out of the box, it's pretty easy, isn't it? if-then rewards work really well for those sorts of tasks, where there's a simple set of rules and a clear destination to go to. Rewards, by their very nature, narrow our focus, concentrate the mind. That's why they work in so many cases. And so for tasks like this, a narrowed focus where you just see the goal right there, zoom straight ahead to it, they work really well. But for the real candle problem, you don't want to be looking like this. The solution's not over here. The solution's on the periphery. You want to be looking around. That reward actually narrows our focus and restricts our possibility. Let me tell you why this is so important. In Western Europe, in many parts of Asia, in North America, in Australia, white-collar workers are doing less of this kind of work and more of this kind of work. That routine, rule-based, left-brain work, certain kinds of accounting, certain kinds of financial analysis, certain kinds of computer programming, has become fairly easy to outsource, fairly easy to automate. Software can do it faster. Low-cost providers around the world can do it cheaper. So what really matters are the more right-brain, creative, conceptual kinds of abilities. Think about your own work. Think about your own work. Are the problems that you face, or even the problems we've been talking about here, are those kinds of problems, do they have a clear set of rules and a single solution? No. The rules are mystifying. The solution, if it exists at all, is surprising and non-obvious. Everybody in this room is dealing with their own version of the candle problem. And for candle problems of any kind, in any field, those if-then rewards, the things around which we've built so many of our businesses, don't work. Now, I mean, it makes me crazy. And this is not, here's the thing, this is not a feeling, okay? I'm a lawyer, I don't believe in feelings. This is not a philosophy. I'm an American, I don't believe in philosophy. This is a fact, or as we say in my hometown of Washington, D.C., a true fact.
Okay, I'm going to stop Dan there as planned. And what I'm going to do now, and it will be in the email as well, but if I put it in the chat there you go. So there's the link to watch the full video where he goes on to look at evidence as to why this really does matter. A really interesting video, I think, which gets us to think about motivation, particularly that point. Really resonates with me. Most of the places we are working with at the moment, and most of your roles, is around the idea of challenging, creative, that outside the box thinking. And actually, you see that narrow the focus. Well, what we want to do is open the focus, and that's how we can bring in. And what it does go on to do is Dan goes on to talk about 3 key areas or key intrinsic motivators that we want to tap into, which most of you have already mentioned via the chat, and these are on the screen now. So he goes on to talk about autonomy, which is a level of control of what we do; mastery, getting really, really good at something that matters to us; but then also a purpose. People want to feel that they're doing something that truly matters, that's bigger than ourselves. So autonomy, ownership and empowerment. The mastery is around development and becoming an expert, and then purpose is about doing something that's bigger than ourselves. And hopefully we're starting to see how it relates back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I'm just going to explore some of these real briefly. You've come up with some ideas. I'm going to give you some suggestions to go away and think about as well. So first off, autonomy. 3 key points that I'm going to bring up. First and foremost, avoid micromanagement. Okay. And micromanagement is different to hand holding. If you've got a new member of the team and they're not, or new to task, then absolutely be there for them. Instruct them what to do, hand hold, coach them when needed. But micromanaging is certainly not needed when someone is of a level, or is potentially of that level, where you can just say, well, okay, what do you think? How would you go about that? A good way to do that, low-hanging fruit, is a question. If someone comes to you with a problem, rather than giving them the solution, say to them, what have you already tried? What else could you try? That puts the focus back on them and allows them to gain more autonomy. Yes, also use that sort of effective delegation, So that we do a session on delegation, but essentially plan the delegation, deliver it to the individual, and then constantly review. And set SMART targets so it's clear, it's not ambiguous, they know what they're working towards. That often helps people if that is possible, and if not, talk it through with them. And then also that accountable mindset, get them to become more accountable. And then finally, empowerment. So an example there is from Atlassian. I use that one rather than Google Time for now. And once a quarter, it's a software development company, they say to their developers, you've got 24 hours to work on whatever you want, with whoever you want, the way you want to. And within that time, because what the managers have done and the senior leadership team have got out of the way, through those 24 hours, they've come up with heaps of solutions to bugs, new products, new ideas, ways of working, and to the point where they do that every quarter now, and it's called Ship It Days. Google Time, that's where they encourage their team to protect 20% of the time to keep free for thinking and focus and reflection time. So building on that reflection time as well. The next one is all around mastery. Now, mastery kind of talked about this, but it's about understanding the individual and also ourselves, if we're looking at it through that lens. What is it that I really enjoy, but also what is it that they enjoy, and taking on those tasks or delegating those tasks to the individuals that aligns with their career ambition. The blended learning plan, the idea of the blended learning plan, you can Google this later on for those that aren't quite aware. It's that 70-20-10 principle, or 10-20-70 as it says there. 10% is formal, which is in classrooms. But as we all know, that's only part of the puzzle, because then it's about application. So 20% is from others, that shoulder to shoulder working, which is a slight concern if you are remotely based, but you can still mimic that through teams, through collaboration tools. And then 70% is in role, allowing people to figure it out for themselves. Yeah, no worries, Beth. Thanks for coming on. Yes, the recording will be available in a few days' time on the website. Okay, thanks for coming. So, and then, yeah, regular check-ins. You already touched on that, team, but coaching support, allowing them to become masters as opposed to doing all the work for them. And that coaching question, what have you done? What else could you do? Really does help them to think creatively rather than just handing them the answers constantly. The last one, so we've looked at autonomy. We looked at mastery. The last one is purpose. And this tips in with quite a lot of what your values are, because you said it is about feeling valued, and that's what a purpose is. So more and more companies are looking towards the purpose motivator. This is where they want people to feel that what they're doing contributes, because that's the way to get better talent. What we're seeing is that the profit motivator that was there becomes unmoored from the purpose motivator. Well, that's when bad things do happen. So we need to be clear. What's our purpose? What are we trying to achieve? Yes, as an organization, we want to make money or stay profitable or make sure that we're sustained. But equally, what's our reason of being? And aligning those messages that are sent out to the team is really, really important. Giving people, for yourself, but also, again, we talked about SMART, but those clear, measurable objectives really does help, because then we can sit back, reflect, give feedback, motivational or developmental, to help people come on and become and feel that what they're doing matters, that it contributes to the overall purpose of the business as well as their own purpose as well. And if you're not quite sure, an additional video that I would suggest is about the purpose, is very much around the why. And for those that have seen it, the Simon Sinek video, great video, one of the most watched TED Talks of all time. Let me pop it in there. It's the idea that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So do check that out. Yeah, nice to see you, Michael, and thanks, Roman, for coming. Okay, so those are the 3 key areas. Now, the last thing I'm going to give you before we come to a conclusion is around personalized motivation, which hopefully ticks a lot of the boxes that were put into the chat. So how do we find out what motivates individuals? Quite simply, it's about asking them the question that I asked you in the poll at the very start: what motivates you? And truly listening to them. Taking time to find out what actually matters to them, and give them time. If they want to reflect on it, give them time. Don't push them, don't pressure them. Listen to see what they come out with. Because remember, everyone is different. It's not a one size fits all. Just because it works for you doesn't mean it's going to work for your colleague. Equally, you can do this for yourself. Sit down with yourself and say, what motivates me? What is it that I want to do within the workplace? And here's a simple technique that you can use for yourself. or for people around you? First off, take this list. You can do this yourself. Create a list of motivating factors. Sit down with the individual or yourself and say, right, out of this list, what are the 3 top ones? There might be more, that's fine, but we aim for 3 because then it's more of a manageable thing to try and bring to life. So they're going to sit down, and let's say, for example, that they pick fun, learning, development, and knowledge and recognition as an example. So then what we're going to do, which is part 2, we're going to sit with them or ourselves, if this is through the lens for ourselves, we're going to sit with them and work out what is it that we're going to do to bring that to life. So for Joe, the sales assistant, fun might be socials, having a social once a month, for making sure that we've got good energy in the team. Learning development could be a course that he wants to go on, but equally shadowing a senior member of the team. And that recognition, how does Joe like the recognition? Equally ask yourself that. Is it a call out in front of everyone? Or is it something a little bit more personal in an email or a one-to-one basis? And just by asking these questions and taking the time, we can make that motivation a lot more personal. And you've got to remember, a few key points to wrap up before we close. Everyone's different, so we need to make sure that we personalize it. And we do that by taking time to listen and understand the individual. And also, it's far better to have a stay interview rather than an exit interview, because it upsets me if someone comes to me and says, yeah, I'm leaving because this wasn't ticked for me, or I didn't get that, especially if that was in your control to actually do something about it if you're in a managerial position. So ask that question. How do we make sure that you don't leave, especially to those that you don't want to leave, rather than just assuming that they're happy? Okay, so on that, what's next for you? Well, hopefully you've got something tangible to take away, including that question, but think about how you bring those top levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs to life, focusing on that intrinsic motivation, so autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Check out the whole video. It's the links in the chat there. And always personalize the motivation to the individual. A low-hanging fruit for me, if you're in a managerial position, ask the person who one member of your team what motivates you and see what that comes out of, and then bring it to life for them. Okay, on that, this is where I'm going to say thanks very much. Appreciate that I've run over slightly. I get very passionate about this subject because I think it's such an easy one to get going. So if you've got any questions and you want to stay on board, and then you feel free to ask. If not, thank you very much for joining. Try and take a moment to reflect on what we've covered to help apply that. Here's some tips on the slide there around prioritizing things that you took away, build into your personal development plans, and yeah, just reflect for a little bit. And maybe if you've got people who came on for your business, just reflect with them as well, and also cover what you covered with your team. Okay, so thanks for joining. If you want to leave any feedback or you want to follow us on social so you can join the next webinar, which is on 28th of November, do feel free to take those QR codes there. If not, stay on board. If you want any questions that you want to ask, and I'm more than happy to dig into it, that's where we can turn the microphones on. But if not, thank you very much for joining. Have a great September, and good luck with that motivating of yourself and that of your team. Take care for now, team, and goodbye.